The prophecy of humanity. The mysterious signal emerges. For centuries, the galaxy had been ruled by powerful alien races, each one claiming vast territories and spreading their influence across the stars. There were stories told in the far corners of the galaxy, whispers of a prophecy about a species that would rise from a forgotten world. A species so strong, so resilient, that no power in the universe could stop them. But the galaxy dismissed it as nothing more than a myth. Humanity, they called it, a species from a small blue planet called Earth. The idea was absurd, and over time, the prophecy was forgotten. That is, until now. The galaxy had been at peace for decades, with the most powerful alien races maintaining a careful balance of power. But something was about to change. It began with a mysterious signal, a faint, untraceable pulse that appeared on the farthest edges of the galaxy. It was weak, almost like a whisper in the void, but it was enough to get the attention of the galaxy's military forces. The signal was unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. It wasn't just a random transmission. It was structured, deliberate. Someone, or something, was trying to communicate. The transmission seemed to come from a part of space that no one had explored in centuries. It was as if it had been hidden away, waiting for the right moment to be discovered. And now, that moment had arrived. The leading races, the ones who ruled the stars with their advanced technology and armies, were alarmed. They tried to trace the signal's origin, but it was like trying to catch a shadow. It bounced across different star systems, never staying in one place long enough to be fully understood. Even their most advanced ships couldn't get close to it. Despite their efforts, the signal grew stronger. Then, after weeks of silence, it happened. The signal changed. It was no longer just a faint whisper. It became a message that would change everything. The message, when translated, was clear. Humanity is coming. At first, no one believed it. Humanity, the species that had been nothing more than a myth. The species whose ancient legends have been laughed off by every scholar and historian in the galaxy. Impossible. But as more signals came through, each more direct and powerful than the last, the galaxy's greatest minds couldn't ignore it any longer. Something was happening, something they couldn't explain. The alien races, who had long considered themselves the supreme powers in the galaxy, began to feel a sense of unease. They had conquered countless worlds, defeated rebellions, and crushed any who dared challenge them. But this was different. The message didn't just say humanity was coming. It promised something much bigger. The most powerful of the alien leaders, those who had been untouched by time, gathered in secret. They had heard the stories, the ancient whispers about humanity, but they had long dismissed them as fantasy. Now those stories were becoming real. The time of the prophecy was upon them, and they were unprepared. In a remote part of the galaxy, a small, unnoticed planet that had been ignored for millennia began to stir. Earth, the home of humanity, had remained silent for far too long. The inhabitants of Earth had spent years in isolation, growing and advancing in secret, preparing for a day that had always seemed impossible. The legends were true, and humanity was finally ready to fulfill its destiny. But how? The galaxy knew nothing about humanity's capabilities. They were an unknown species, and yet their signal was everywhere now. It was impossible to ignore. As the days passed, the galaxy's leaders became frantic. Their spies and scouts reported unusual activity. Ships were appearing from all directions, slowly heading toward the galaxy's core. The fleet that was arriving was unlike anything seen before. Huge ships, glowing with power, their designs foreign but unmistakably advanced, began to form an enormous armada. The fleets were silent at first. No weapons, no threats, just a presence. And that presence sent chills through the leaders of the galaxy. What were these ships? What did they want? The galaxy's strongest military forces began to mobilize. They couldn't risk allowing such an unknown force to reach the heart of the galaxy. But despite their fears, no one dared attack. No one knew what they were dealing with. The ships simply moved forward, slowly but steadily, like an unstoppable tide. And then, on a quiet, starless night, the first ship arrived at the edge of a major star system. It was massive, more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The ship's surface shimmered with a strange, unfamiliar energy. As it approached, it sent another message. This time, there was no mistaking it. Humanity was here. The leaders of the galaxy held their breath. They knew they were facing something they had never encountered before. A species that had been written off as a myth, but now was very real. The prophecy had come true. And with it, humanity's fleet had arrived. The galaxy could no longer deny it. The time of humanity had come. The myth was no longer a legend. It was a reality. The first contact. As the fleet of humanity's ships drew closer to the heart of the galaxy, the entire galaxy held its breath. The alien races, who had been in control for centuries, began to question everything they thought they knew. These ships were unlike anything they had ever encountered, and they brought with them an undeniable sense of power. On the edge of one of the most heavily guarded star systems, the first of humanity's ships made its appearance. It was enormous, far larger than any ship the galaxy had ever seen. The sleek, metallic surface shimmered with strange, unexplainable energy, and its engines hummed with a low, almost musical sound. The alien systems tried to track its movements, but every time they thought they had it cornered, the ship slipped away, vanishing into the stars. The strange thing was, the ship didn't communicate in the way anyone expected. There were no demands, no threats, no declarations of war. It simply existed. It moved like it had all the time in the galaxy. It didn't hurry. It didn't hide. It was as though the ship knew it was already victorious. The leaders of the alien empires, once certain they ruled the stars, had no idea what to do. They sent fleets of ships to intercept humanity's vessels, hoping to gain some understanding, some hint as to what they wanted. But every attempt ended in failure. The humans weren't hostile. They simply weren't interested in the status quo. They were just coming. Then, the first communication arrived. At first, it was nothing more than static, a strange series of beeps and tones that sounded almost musical. The aliens tried to decode it, but it was unlike anything they had ever heard. It wasn't a language they recognized, nor was it a simple code. It was intricate, layered, full of meaning, something that couldn't just be cracked in an instant. But after several long hours, the signal shifted. It wasn't static anymore. It was clear, direct. Humanity is here. We are not here to conquer. We are here to restore what was lost. The message reverberated across every communication channel. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't demanding. But the words hit like a storm. Humanity, the myth, the legend, was real. And they weren't here to take over. They were here for something else, something more mysterious, something bigger. The message sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The alien leaders, those who had once been so confident in their power, were rattled. What could this new species want? What did they mean by restore what was lost? And why now? Why after all these years? At the same time, something strange happened. On the surface of Earth, a few people began to notice something even stranger. There were flashes of light in the sky. Not stars, not meteors. Ships. Humanity's fleet was arriving. The first ship to land touched down in an uninhabited desert, far away from major cities, but its arrival was still felt by every single person on Earth. It was impossible to miss. The ship was colossal, its size so immense that it blocked out the sun when it arrived. It shimmered like a mirage, its surface reflecting the light in ways that seemed almost unnatural. The humans, knowing this was their moment, didn't panic. They had been waiting for this day for centuries. They knew the stories, the prophecies, and they knew what they had to do. As the ship's doors slowly opened, a figure emerged, the leader, a commander, someone who had been chosen long ago for this moment. The figure was clad in a uniform unlike anything anyone had ever seen, a combination of high-tech armor and elegant flowing robes. There was a calm in their presence, a quiet power that radiated outward. The human leader raised their hand, and with it, a signal was sent across the galaxy. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise, a message. We come in peace. We come to restore the balance of the galaxy. We come to remind you that the myths were real. We are humanity, and we are your equals. The world fell silent. The galaxy, once so sure of its dominance, now had to face a reality they never expected. Humanity had arrived. They were real, and they were not here to beg for mercy. They were here to take their place among the stars. As the human leader turned back to their fleet, the enormity of what was happening began to sink in. The myth had become reality, and the first contact had been made. The galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity's secret. As the galaxy tried to comprehend the arrival of humanity's fleet, more and more questions arose. What was their true power? Where had they been all these years? And most importantly, what did they mean when they spoke of restoring what was lost? The message sent by the human fleet had raised even more questions than it had answered, and the galaxy's leaders scrambled to find answers. Humanity had long been thought of as a myth, a forgotten race from a distant planet in the far reaches of the galaxy. But now, the truth was undeniable. They had returned, and their presence was impossible to ignore. Still, despite their growing influence, there was little information about them. Their ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, sleek, powerful, and seemingly invincible, but they were cautious, never revealing all their secrets. Back on Earth, the people who had once lived in quiet isolation were beginning to piece together the history of their own species. The first human leader to speak publicly about their fleet had revealed only a small part of the truth, but the ancient records held much more. The truth, hidden for centuries, was now being brought to light. As the days passed, more and more humans began to reveal their knowledge, the knowledge they had kept hidden for so long. Humanity had never been a weak species. They had built their empire in secret, preparing for the moment when the galaxy would need them most. And now, that moment had arrived. In the ancient archives of Earth, hidden beneath layers of dust and forgotten history, lay records that described a civilization far more advanced than the galaxy had ever imagined. Earth was not just a small, insignificant planet. It was the cradle of a species that had once ruled the stars. Long ago, humanity had created a vast empire, one that spanned galaxies, with ships and technology far superior to anything the galaxy's alien races could fathom. But their empire had fallen, lost to time and forgotten in the annals of history. The ancient records revealed that humanity had not disappeared, as the galaxy believed. Instead, they had gone into hiding, retreating into the shadows, waiting for the right moment to return. They had seen the rise of the alien empires, the expansion of foreign powers, and the suffering of the galaxy's inhabitants. But they had never intervened. They had watched, patiently, from the sidelines, gathering strength and knowledge. And now, that strength was being unleashed. The fleet that had arrived was not just a random collection of ships. It was a symbol of humanity's rebirth. Each ship had been designed with a purpose, and each was more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. But the most surprising part of humanity's secret was not their technology or their military might. It was something much deeper. Humanity had a unique power, one that no other species in the galaxy possessed. It was the power of resilience, the power to survive against all odds. It was something built into their very nature. They were a species that had fought wars, survived destruction, and rebuilt time and time again. Every time they were knocked down, they had risen stronger. It was this relentless determination that had allowed them to remain hidden for so long, and it was this strength that now made them the most formidable force in the galaxy. The first few skirmishes between humanity's fleet and the alien forces had been intense. The galaxy's alien races were powerful, but they were unprepared for humanity's ingenuity and sheer will to survive. The human ships moved with an elegance and efficiency that left the alien fleets in awe, and each battle only revealed more of humanity's capabilities. Despite their power, however, the humans didn't seem to be fighting for control. They weren't trying to dominate the galaxy. Instead, they were focused on something else, something much more personal. They were fighting for their place in the galaxy, a place that had been stolen from them long ago. They were fighting for the right to exist, for the right to be recognized as equals. But what was it that had been lost? What was it that humanity had come to restore? The answers were locked away in the ancient records, buried deep beneath the surface of Earth. But as the days passed, it became clear that the galaxy's rulers were no longer in control. The myth of humanity had become reality, and they were not going to let anyone stand in their way. The galaxy watched, both in fear and awe, as humanity's fleet continued to advance. With each passing day, the alien forces grew more desperate. They couldn't fight an enemy they didn't understand, and they couldn't defeat a species that had endured so much. And so the question remained, what was humanity's true purpose? What had they come to restore? And why had they waited so long to return? The alien response. As the weeks passed and humanity's fleet continued its steady advance across the galaxy, the alien empires began to realize that they were facing something entirely new, something unlike any force they had ever encountered. The once proud and confident rulers of the galaxy were now forced to confront a truth they had long denied. Humanity was real, and they were not here to be ignored. The galaxy's strongest military leaders gathered in secret to discuss how to handle the growing threat. Each race, from the sophisticated Andorans to the ruthless Vexians, had their own approach to war, but none had been prepared for a species like humanity. Their fleets were massive, their technology advanced, but most of all, they were driven by something that the galaxy's leaders had never understood: resilience, the ability to endure, to keep pushing forward despite overwhelming odds. Despite their fear, the alien leaders knew they couldn't just let humanity's ships pass by unchecked. They had to act, and they had to act quickly. The first thing they decided was to form an alliance. It wasn't easy. Decades of rivalry and mistrust between the different races had built walls of suspicion, but the threat of humanity's fleet was too great to ignore. For the first time in a long while, the galaxy's rulers put aside their differences and united. This alliance was not just a diplomatic agreement. It was a military one. Every alien race sent their strongest warships, their most skilled soldiers, and their top strategists to form a united front. They would stop humanity at all costs. But even as they prepared for war, they couldn't help but wonder, what was it about humanity that had made them so powerful? How had a species that was once thought extinct risen to challenge them so quickly? The alliance began by deploying smaller scout ships to track humanity's movements. Each report that came back was filled with fear and confusion. Humanity's ships were unlike any the scouts had ever encountered. They didn't engage in traditional space battles, nor did they display the usual signs of aggression. Instead, their ships moved with purpose, as though they were heading toward something, and that something was always just out of reach. In the darkest corners of the galaxy, rumors began to spread. Some whispered that humanity's fleet was vast, larger than any other fleet in existence. Others claimed that the humans had a weapon so powerful that it could destroy entire planets with a single strike. But no one knew for sure. All they knew was that humanity was different, and that difference was terrifying. The Alien Council, now united, sent a message to humanity. They demanded an explanation for their sudden appearance, for the threat they posed. The message was harsh, warning humanity to turn back before things escalated any further. But once again, humanity's response was calm and simple. We are not here to fight. We are here to restore balance. Do not stand in our way. The message was sent out across every communication channel, each one loud and clear. Humanity wasn't asking for permission. They weren't begging for peace. They were simply making it clear. They had returned, and nothing was going to stop them from fulfilling their destiny. The alien leaders were furious. They couldn't believe the audacity of these humans. Who were they to speak to the galaxy's greatest empires in such a way? But even in their anger, there was a flicker of doubt. Humanity's fleet was growing. Ships were arriving from every corner of the galaxy, each more powerful than the last. The stories of their strength were no longer just rumors. The myth was becoming reality. The galaxy's military forces began to prepare for war. Massive battle fleets were assembled, warships bristling with weapons, ready to face off against humanity's mysterious armada. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's leaders felt fear. They could no longer dismiss humanity as a myth, and they could no longer afford to wait and watch. The time had come for them to act. But as they prepared for battle, a strange question lingered in the air. What if they couldn't win? The answer to that question would come soon enough, as humanity's fleet drew ever closer, unwavering in its advance. The aliens were preparing for the fight of their lives. But what they didn't realize was that this wasn't just a fight for survival. This was a fight for the future of the galaxy. A future where humanity would no longer be a forgotten myth, but a force to be reckoned with. The battle for the galaxy. The tension across the galaxy had reached its peak. The alien empires, once confident in their dominance, had now united under one banner to face the approaching human threat. The warships were ready. The fleets were mobilized. Every commander, every strategist, was prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Humanity, however, was different from any enemy they had faced before. Their fleet, which had once been a mystery, was now a powerful force, slowly advancing toward the galaxy's core. Their ships were sleek, silent, and efficient. They didn't engage in traditional warfare. They didn't attack indiscriminately. Instead, they moved with purpose, as though each ship had a destination, a goal that no one could quite understand. And then the first battle began. The alien fleets, hundreds of ships strong, encountered humanity's forces at the edge of the core worlds. The humans didn't make the first move. Instead, they waited, observing the alien ships as they encircled them. There was a strange calm about humanity's fleet, as if they knew something the aliens did not. Without warning, the first shots were fired. The human fleet, with precision and speed, launched an overwhelming wave of energy blasts. The alien ships, though powerful, were unprepared for the sheer accuracy and force of the human strike. Ships exploded in flashes of light as their shields were breached within seconds. The human weapons cut through the alien defenses with a terrifying efficiency. What shocked the alien commanders the most was not the power of the human weapons, but the humans' fighting style. They didn't simply attack. They outmaneuvered the enemy with surgical precision, each move calculated to avoid enemy fire while landing devastating blows. It was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever seen. The alien fleets, once the most advanced in the galaxy, were being torn apart in mere minutes. In the midst of the chaos, a strange realization began to settle in the minds of the alien leaders. Humanity wasn't just fighting to survive. They were fighting with purpose, with precision. They weren't fighting for territory or power. They were fighting for something much bigger. It was as if every shot fired, every move made, was part of a greater plan. The alien forces regrouped, but it was too late. The human fleet had already breached their lines. What was once a massive coordinated assault by the alien alliance had turned into a desperate defense. Human warships, undeterred by the heavy alien fire, continued to press forward, cutting through the enemy ranks with relentless determination. And then, just when it seemed the alien forces might be able to mount a counteroffensive, humanity's trump card was revealed. One massive human warship, the flagship of the fleet, emerged from behind a nearby moon. It was unlike any ship the galaxy had ever seen, a massive, imposing structure, larger and more powerful than anything the aliens had ever encountered. The The ship was surrounded by an aura of energy, an unseen force that rippled through space like a shockwave. It moved forward slowly, but its mere presence sent a wave of fear through the alien commanders. The flagship fired a single shot, a beam of energy that cut through the heart of an entire alien fleet. The weapon was so powerful that it destroyed not just the ships in its path, but also the very space around them, causing ripples in the fabric of space-time itself. The aliens had no idea how the humans had harnessed such destructive power. The truth was, they didn't need to know. The humans had arrived, and they had brought a power that no one could comprehend. The battle raged on, but it was clear now. Humanity was winning. Their fleet was unstoppable. The alien forces, once so sure of their superiority, were crumbling beneath the weight of humanity's assault. It was a battle like no other. A battle that was shaping the future of the galaxy. As the last of the alien ships were destroyed or forced to retreat, humanity's fleet stood victorious. The message was clear. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. They had thought the humans were a myth, a forgotten species. But now, they knew the truth. Humanity had returned, and they were not going anywhere. But this victory was not just a triumph of military power. It was a message to the entire galaxy. Humanity wasn't here to conquer. They weren't here to destroy. They were here to restore balance, to take their rightful place among the stars. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity's fleet, having achieved its first great victory, began to move forward, their presence undeniable. The first battle was over, but the war was far from finished. There was more at stake than just the power of the galaxy's empires. The future of the galaxy was being rewritten, and humanity was now its driving force. The question now was not whether humanity could be stopped. It was whether the galaxy could accept them. For too long, the galaxy's rulers had assumed that they were the rightful masters of the stars. But now, they were facing the reality that humanity's legacy was far greater than they had ever imagined. As the first hints of this truth spread across the galaxy, the leaders of the alien races grew uneasy. Some saw this as an opportunity to negotiate, to find a way to coexist with humanity. Others, however, refused to back down. They would not let humanity take back what they had stolen, no matter the cost. And so, the stage was set. The galaxy was on the brink of a new era, one in which humanity would once again rise to take its rightful place among the stars. But whether that rise would be peaceful or violent, only time would tell. Triumph and new beginnings. The galaxy stood at a crossroads. The myth of humanity had been proven true, and with every passing day, the truth about their once great empire spread across the stars. The alien races that had long ruled the galaxy now faced an uncomfortable reality. Humanity was not only real, but they were powerful beyond measure. They had returned to reclaim what had been taken from them. After unveiling the history of their lost empire, humanity's leaders now took their place at the negotiating table, not as beggars or conquerors, but as equals. Their fleet, victorious and unrelenting, had crushed alien forces in battle, but it was clear that they did not wish to bring the galaxy to its knees. The humans had come to restore balance, to reclaim their rightful place, not to destroy or dominate. Their message was one of unity, not of conquest. But even in the face of humanity's undeniable strength, not all alien factions were willing to accept them. Some believed that the galaxy's balance of power had been set for too long, and that the human return was a threat to their very existence. These factions plotted behind closed doors, preparing for one final stand. They would not let humanity's resurgence go unchallenged. The leaders of the human fleet, however, were calm and resolute. They had fought to survive, to return, and now they were determined to ensure a peaceful future for all. As the dust settled from the recent battles, humanity reached out to the alien empires, proposing a new era of cooperation and shared governance. Earth's ancient legacy, once buried beneath the surface of time, was now a shining example of what the galaxy could achieve if they worked together. But peace would not come easily. Despite the human leadership's best efforts, distrust ran deep. Some races could not accept that the humans had returned not for vengeance, but to rebuild what was lost. The thought of sharing power with a species they had long considered inferior was a bitter pill to swallow. Yet, despite the resistance, there were some factions, those who had grown tired of endless conflict and suffering, who saw the potential for a better future under humanity's guidance. These factions began to speak in favor of humanity's cause, urging their leaders to embrace the changes that were sweeping across the galaxy. Humanity's fleets, after all, had not only won battles, they had demonstrated something even more powerful, the ability to inspire hope. A hope that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy could move beyond its endless wars and territorial disputes and unite for a common cause. The turning point came when humanity proposed the Galactic Accord, a treaty that would create a new, united governing body for the galaxy. The goal was not domination, but rather cooperation. The human fleet would share its advanced technology, its knowledge, and its resources with the alien empires, working together to rebuild worlds ravaged by war and exploitation. It was a bold proposal, one that required trust, understanding, and compromise. The treaty was not easy to establish. Long-standing rivalries and prejudices couldn't be erased overnight. But humanity's leaders, having been through the fires of their own history, understood the value of patience and diplomacy. They knew that the future of the galaxy rested not on their military might, but on their ability to bring peace and prosperity to the stars. Over time, the tide began to turn. More and more alien leaders, once staunchly opposed to humanity's rise, began to come to the negotiating table. Slowly, the factions began to reconcile, and the first signs of unity began to appear. The galaxy, which had once been divided by conflict and distrust, was now starting to see the potential for a new, shared future. The question now was, what would the galaxy do next? Would the alien empires accept the rise of humanity, or would they fight back against the myth that had become reality? Unveiling the truth. The dust had barely settled from the first massive battle, yet the galaxy's focus remained squarely on humanity. They had won the first encounter decisively, but there was still a sense of unease. The alien forces were licking their wounds, preparing for the next inevitable clash, but humanity's true intentions were still shrouded in mystery. What did they really want? What had brought them to the galaxy after all these years of isolation? The war had been brutal, but the answer to these questions was something much deeper than mere military conquest. As the remnants of the alien fleets scrambled to regroup and retreat to their homeworlds, whispers began to spread across the galaxy. Whispers about the truth of humanity's past, about what they had been hiding for so long. The human fleet's commanders, now emboldened by their early victories, began to make their next move. They didn't speak of new battles or further conquest. Instead, their fleets moved toward the center of the galaxy. Humanity wasn't just here to fight. They were here to reclaim something. But what could they possibly want? The galaxy had always been dominated by powerful alien races. To them, humanity was a forgotten species, nothing more than a myth. And yet, the humans had somehow built an empire in secret, hidden away in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. It was now clear that humanity wasn't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to restore something that had been lost. And the galaxy's leaders were about to find out what that was. In the heart of Earth, an ancient facility was uncovered, long buried beneath the surface. This facility, unknown even to most humans, held the key to understanding what had truly happened to their species centuries ago. A small group of historians, archaeologists, and scholars were brought together to examine the site. What they found was beyond anything they could have imagined. Hidden deep beneath Earth's crust, they discovered the remnants of humanity's ancient empire. This was not a simple, primitive society that had hidden itself away. No, what they uncovered was a vast, sprawling network of cities, technologies, and shipyards, millions of years of history buried beneath the surface, waiting to be rediscovered. Earth, it seemed, had been the heart of a galactic empire, one so advanced that it had far outstripped the capabilities of any of the alien races that now dominated the galaxy. As the historians pored over the ancient texts and artifacts, they began to piece together the lost story of humanity's rise to power. Thousands of years ago, Earth had been the center of a vast and flourishing empire that spanned countless star systems. But this empire had not been built through war. It had been built on diplomacy, innovation, and the spirit of cooperation. Humanity had been the shining beacon of peace and unity in the galaxy. However, as time passed, other races became envious of humanity's power. A coalition of alien forces, fearing the potential of humanity's growth, waged war against Earth. It was a war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen, a conflict that lasted centuries, devastating entire systems. Eventually, the alien forces succeeded in their campaign, destroying the central hubs of humanity's empire, forcing the humans into hiding. But humanity had always been resilient. They didn't fall. They didn't disappear. Instead, they retreated into the shadows, biding their time. They sent ships into the farthest reaches of the galaxy, establishing small, hidden outposts and preparing for the day when they would return. The galaxy, in its ignorance, had forgotten the true history of humanity, thinking them lost, thinking them weak. And now, that history was coming to light. The hidden truths were being unveiled, and with each discovery, the galaxy's understanding of humanity began to change. The myth was no longer a myth. Humanity's legacy was real, and they were ready to reclaim their place at the top of the galactic order. As the human fleet moved deeper into the galaxy, their purpose became clearer. They were not here to conquer or to destroy. They were here to restore what had been taken from them. The galaxy's alien races had taken everything from humanity long ago, but now, humanity was returning to take it back. And with each passing day, more and more alien systems began to realize the truth. The fleet that had once seemed like an unstoppable force of destruction was actually the manifestation of a lost civilization's return. Humanity's fleet was not just a military force. It was a symbol of their resurgence, their rise from the ashes of a shattered empire. As the Galactic Accord took shape, humanity's role as both a leader and a partner became clear. Earth, the once forgotten planet, was now a central hub for diplomacy, innovation, and trade. The human fleet, once a symbol of power and strength, now served as a beacon of hope, a reminder of what could be accomplished when different species came together for a common purpose. The first steps toward peace were not without their challenges. Old wounds were slow to heal, and mistrust still lingered. But with every passing day, the galaxy moved closer to the new era humanity had promised. The myth had been fulfilled, not through conquest or destruction, but through resilience, unity, and a shared vision for a better future. And so, humanity's journey had come full circle. From a forgotten species dismissed as myth, they had risen to become the stewards of the galaxy's future. They had reclaimed their place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as the ones who would restore balance, peace, and hope to a galaxy in turmoil. The story of humanity's triumph was not just a tale of victory. It was a story of new beginnings. The galaxy would never be the same, but in the end, it was a galaxy transformed by the return of a species that had been forgotten. Now, humanity would lead the way, showing that even in the darkest of times, there was always a chance for a new dawn.